That speech is a treasure, sir, and I thank you for giving us the honor of hosting you for this, for sharing your extremely original and forward-looking prophetic views. We have an opportunity for a question and answer session, and I'll keep it broad. Mr. Gurumurthy, my first question to you is because what I find very refreshing and very different in your approach is that you link society, our civilizational ethos, our history, global events, geostrategy, and then link it back to pure economics. So my question to you, sir, is on a broad level, has the West undermined the impact of geopolitics on economics, or post-World War II, have they taken the geopolitical order in the world for granted? And is it that for the first time in 2021, 22, post-Ukraine, post-COVID, that there has been a rude awakening for them for the first time? Have they been taken by surprise? And just to elaborate, because there's been this view that America understands geopolitics, and there's been a certain intrinsic arrogance about the way they've dealt with their own place in the world and the rights on the global assets. Did they overstep? Did they forget their own limits? Or have they been outsmarted, Mr. Gurumurthy? What do you think?
You see, I believe that the Western thinkers have lost the sense of civilization. The West has been living on the civilizational assets created by their forefathers without fertilizing it to grow. Without fertilizing it to grow. For example, 55% of the first marriages end in divorce in 10 years. 67% of the second marriages end in divorce. 73% of the third marriages end in divorce. There are the Americans living with a couple living together is only 28 million households out of 130 million households. Because they felt civilization will sustain itself. Civilization requires an ecosystem to survive. Ultra-individualism has destroyed the family, culture, civilization, and promoted only rule of law. Rule of law cannot be the main basis on which a society can function. Rule of law has to be very largely supplemented by non-formal systems controlling and regulating human behavior. This was gone. Church was doing it, they destroyed the church. In America, when I went to address a meeting of some Hindu organization in Boston, I was taken to a huge building. It was a church. I said, why are we meeting in the church? Sir, it's no more church, sir. It's a Vishnu temple. Churches are being sold. So, when you think that 5 years is the limit for human existence, your short-termism, 5 years politics, 1 year economics, quarterly results, overnight interest, this has destroyed you. So, it requires a very big thought movement. I don't think that kind of thought movement can generate in an ultra-liberal America with wokeism on the rise. I think whether they will be able to sustain the kind of democratic, the liberal democratic institutions and approach itself is a big question mark for me.
I also agree with you.
And as a result,
yes, sir.
When they felt, this globalization has given them an institutional lead, institutional command, they thought this is an undiluted advantage forever with the main enemies finished and one enemy at their feet. But that enemy had a longer plan. We will bide our time. And they were able to do it. One point I forgot to mention, that they allowed the Chinese into the WTO, but in 2016, American trade representative and EU trade representative filed an application in the WTO. China is not a market economy. China said the very fact that you have allowed me into the WTO means I am a market economy. America had to threaten, if you don't declare China as not a market economy, we will withdraw from WTO. So 2019, WTO declared China as not a market economy. Everyone knew China was not a market economy. For your geopolitical interests, you allowed China. China has trampled you today. According to me, in fact, I have written a whole thesis on this and put it in the Vivekanand International Foundation website as part of my random thoughts last year, that America raised a Frankenstein monster in China only because of the American institution was invaded by China itself.
Correct. So in your entire introduction today, when you were speaking, you repeated the phrase "dynamite in America" 2 or 3 times, and I had this whole visualization of this in my mind. You said this will dynamite the American economy. That will dynamite the American economy. And I was thinking, Mr. Gurumurthy, what an opportunity for India. What an opportunity for India. For 2 reasons. A, we are a true democracy. And I believe that they have been lecturing us about the phrase you used, backsliding of democracy. And Mr. Gurumurthy, I hate it. I don't want to be lectured by a country where there are the Capitol Hill riots. I feel if there is a democracy that is backsliding today, it is those democracies who lecture us. You saw what happened during the truckers' protest in Canada, sir. You saw the regressive verdicts by the courts in America, the Capitol Hill riots. That is a clear backsliding of democracy. And I would like your thoughts on what that will give, what impact that will have to the world. Whether the backsliding of the Western form of democracy is a systemic risk to the markets. Does it give an opportunity to India? So my next question to you, sir, is because this change I feel America is an unstable country today socially. And my simple question to you is, when the world's largest economy, whose currency dominates everything, becomes socially unstable, what is its impact on the global economic order, in your view?
See, what America has done in the last 2 decades is to co-opt the world economy into the American financial system. It has co-opted the world monetary order into the American monetary order. It was its strength, and that is becoming the weakness also today. So, with so much dollars outside America, and America printing more dollars, and America exporting more dollars to import, and with no other mechanism to control inflation, they have to do it even more. They are now caught in a situation from which it is, I am talking about economically. To get out of this, America has to hugely reduce its standard of living.
Reduce its standard
of living. Otherwise, it's not possible.
That will lead to more social disorder. 1.
Second, the kind of standard of living they have. For example, a country with 30 million households has 260 million cars. So these are all unsustainable, and for that road and for that petrol and for, this kind of thing is not sustainable by any standard. And for which the only answer you have is not that you are raising revenue but printing dollars. This is possible, this was possible because you are the superpower to which everybody looked up to. Today you are being challenged. You are being challenged not by another country, you are being challenged by commodities.
I'm going to come right there. But one more question on America, because the context is this, viewers, and the Chinese economy is not as attractive as it used to be. Systemic fault lines are now coming and becoming more visible.
Hugely.
The American economy is hinged on an overextension. It is fragile, it is overstretched. I believe that it's made a huge mistake in Ukraine. It's got into a war that it cannot afford. So my next, and therefore I am seeing with our shared philosophy, Mr. Gurumurthy of Nation First, a tremendous opportunity for Bharat in all of this. But if India is to emerge as an alternative, I hate to sound cruel about it, America has to fall. I'm being a little mercenary in my thought here, sir. But can America course correct? Because you mentioned two things which struck me. One, you said America has this huge import-driven economy. Their supply chains are incongruous. They're unsustainable. You also said that it's a country which is spoilt on dole. It is a state dole-dependent population. Right? These are not things that you can course correct in a day. Can a challenged America course correct? Are they capable of doing that? And if so, then what kind of course correction is needed for them?
See, I'll make 3 points. Whatever happens to America, the worst affected country will be China.
China. So they'll fall together.
Serious problems, because the kind of problems that China will face if the export-driven economy receives a setback, I don't think the Chinese system will be able to manage. Because they have, for example, simple, they have invested about $5.4 trillion outside China. If the world economy is slowing down, that will become an NPA. So, world economy to be sustained, the same kind of printing of money, the same kind of the perception that things are okay, everything is hunky-dory, business as usual, this cannot continue. There will be a huge restructure of the world economy if there is scaling down of the American or European Union standard of living, which according to me is inevitable even on the grounds of environment, which is becoming a very important issue, in which India will sustain itself only for example, if there is scaling down of standard of living, the first thing that will fall is the oil prices, and that's precisely what you want. And India's technological rise and India's capacity to have self-restraint. The most important thing is our people have huge self-restraint, our capacity to save, and you are also making safe savings. You know, we are not going in for this risky savings. So your banking, we are a bank-led economy, which is very good. I think government must understand. Our economy should understand. Our media should understand that a bank-led economy like Germany, for instance, if Germany will survive, it's because it is a bank-led economy. In Germany, many companies are delisting from stock market. They are losing faith in stock market. And stock market has now become such important thing in US pension system, US insurance system. Nearly from 20 to 25% of the assets being in stock market, it has become 70 to 75%. What happens to the stock market will happen to the insurance companies, to the pension funds. So they have put all the eggs in one basket. Fortunately, India is free from all this. There is a disengagement on all these points. Our point is, how are you going to make the external position, how to handle this? On which I think we have to undertake a serious review of our imports.
Okay.
Second thing, we have to go for huge bilateralization of trade. And we have got to combine capital and current account together in dealing with the country. For example, we have a running current account deficit of $25 billion with Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia is going to invest in India $50 billion. So we will combine the current account and capital account and say that we will give you our rupee to invest. Why do you want us to pay in dollars?
Correct.
You know, this kind of restructuring will take place in the world.
Part by part, bit by bit, we have to do it.
We have to, because once globalization fails, bilateralization is the only alternative, and India must quickly step into bilateralization of trade.
Now, what do we learn from the fact that the Russian economy did not collapse? as the entire Western media predicted. In fact, people hate it. Those whose entire thinking is Western economy centric hate the fact that the Russian economy has been quite resilient in its own way. What does that tell us? What is the learning for us of, which is exactly the opposite of what the Western media had predicted?
Actually, the unique advantage that Russia had was its energy, and it was able to make Europe dependent on itself for its energy by using the very slogan of globalization. That I am giving you pipeline, I am giving you everything, you come to me. And they knew by making European Union dependent on Russia for energy is the only way Russia will be able to face the challenges of America on NATO. So they slowly in 20 years co-opted European Union into the energy economy. For example, if European Union had not been co-opted to that extent, Russian response in terms of commodity trade would not have been as successful as it was. So it's a very peculiar position they had. China has the opposite thing. China will not be able to give up its exports to America, and it will not be able to sustain itself without the financial link that exists between America and China. And China has a huge housing problem. In fact, I am studying it. Its problem is unmanageable because they are destroying the houses which they have built to create more houses, because those houses are not occupied. Both European Union, America and China followed the house property inflation rate, house property asset appreciation to create money to fund. And China's shadow banking is as large as the American shadow banking.
Right.
So actually it is the Marxist version of American capitalism. So all these nations share the same risk, the financial risk. We don't have that financial risk because our entire asset base, according to the US, the Credit Suisse, is $4.5 trillion, period. Whereas it is 10 times more for China.
Yeah.
So we are safer because our households are least indebted. Our government is less indebted than most Western governments, particularly America and England. All these countries are very high. Their corporates are indebted. The debt which the Western economies carry today is unbelievably high. China has more debt than America itself. So these people have gone all for financialization, which we have been very careful about.
But don't you think America is in a worse situation because it is on a form of drugs which it cannot get out of? See, George Soros said in Davos, and he's a person to follow a little bit because he tells you about his thinking.
He knows about
By the
money.
way, he's incredibly interested in investing in Indian media organizations by stealth. He said, speaking about the Ukraine war, he said, even when the fighting stops, as it eventually must, the situation in the world will never revert to what it was before. Is the insinuation that if the war ends, the Western economy as we know it is certain to collapse? And let me just explain this to you in the way I've been looking at it. If you do a heat map of the stocks of American companies, which show companies in technology in the red, semiconductor technology in America in the red, credit services in America in the red, financials in America in the red, software sector in the red. Only companies doing well are the defense manufacturers. Raytheon Technologies Corporation is the top performer. That is why this September, the National Security Coordinator for Arms Control there called the war a greatest opportunity for us. It is like a person who is terribly sick, asking for a last strong dose of chemical drugs to feel better. Am I over pessimistic about the American situation, or is it moving in that direction? Because there is no parameter which is telling me that the American economy will soon not be on the ventilator.
Actually, in the last 20 years, America has lost policy control over both finance and their economy. and they allowed market to take charge. That has been the fall of America. Alan Greenspan's declaration in 2007 was precisely this. We will not be able to regulate the finance, let the market regulate it. That is how the banks themselves became shadow banks. They became investment banks. So, the power to control money, which is the Signoraj power which enables stability in the economy, American system has lost it. That's why I said $22.5 trillion being outside domesticated dollars, which are beyond the control of the US government and US central bank. It can do so much harm to America. It can buy the whole of America. When American asset prices collapse, it is the sovereign funds which will buy them. So America is in a serious problem. And no policy formulation I see can work, because it is the genes out of the bottle now moving around.
Absolutely. So, two last questions. Second last question. You would say, therefore, that India as a country, as a society, our government, who you obviously you advise them and you praise them here, our government must start thinking geopolitically and geostrategically that we must now marry our economics with an understanding of our geopolitics. Because eventually, geopolitics matters. If you've said commodities matter, Putin has the commodities, and that's why he survived, which means eventually geopolitics matters, and maybe our youth, our next generation, should be more equipped to deal with the global geopolitical challenges and be less insular in our approach, even in our foreign policy, and otherwise,
we have already done it. For example, if we are getting 20% or 25% discount from Russia on oil, Iraq is offering more discount. So, we are also using geopolitical weapon to handle the situation in which we are oil dependent, we are energy dependent. So, India has begun playing the global game, undoubtedly.
Lovely.
And I'll tell you, I don't know how many people noticed. In April 2022, when the Ukraine war was peaking up, and India has taken a position against Russia, against America. Every country's leader, finance minister, prime minister, foreign minister, worth the name came to India. In just 1 month, everybody came, as if it is a planned affair. I don't think the media ever, this print media, I have not seen this in the print media. I feel India has acquired a stable and a central position in the world because of 3 things. One, it's a democracy. However much you may say it is not liberal democracy, it is not that, nobody can deny the fact that India is a functioning democracy. Second, after 1989 till 1984, we did not have a stable government. The governments were wobbly. 25 parties, 30 parties, each pulling in one direction. In 2014, a government came, produced results, repeated itself, and a leader of global eminence. These are all factors. So this has given India a central position to deal with the world. The third point is, the Indian economy is, I am not going by the GDP, I am not going by any of these things. The centrality of the Indian economy is that it is not purely market dependent, it is not government dependent, it is a self-dependent people's participative economy. This has not been properly understood by the Indian economists and Indian policy makers. As I just gave that one example, if the Indian family gets split, there is no economic solution for it. If the Indian family sticks together, that is the way India grows. And I would I give the whole credit for this only to Indian women. They have held the family system together. We should praise them like that. Instead, we are transforming them into feminists of the Western type. So we have no civilizational approach. We have no silo-free approach to say, these are the 4 points of the strength of the Indian economy. The Indian economic textbooks are rotten. The sooner they are replaced, the better it is for India. So we need a total revamping of our economic thinking, economic discourse. Then we will align Indian economy to the Indian people, Indian way, Indian civilization. Then we will understand the cultural foundations of India. India is not a market economy. It is a market economy working with the society. The distinction is coming, all of you, those who are familiar with economics may know. There is a difference between market economics and market society. Market society transforms even the human beings into a commodity. In fact, you can lend your forehead for putting somebody's brand on your forehead for 1 month and take $500. Or you can permanently have something fixed on your forehead, some Ford brand or something, for $25,000. This is what is happening in the world. So we are not a market society. Please understand. Market society has been a success because it has produced more money. By producing more money, you don't become wealthy. That is what that wrong thought, that producing more money makes a country more powerful, has been the wrong message America gave it to itself and to the world. You require the capacity to digest that money. That is what Y.V. Reddy said, don't bring this money, it is poison. And it proved to be poison. You must also know how much money you can handle, how much you can digest, how much you can invest, how much you can spend.
Last question, sir. Apologies for not introducing you as a journalist. That is a given. You are India's foremost journalist for years. You've seen everything from pre-emergency,
No.
emergency
Journalists
to
were
now,
saying
sir.
I am not a journalist, so you must.
They say I'm also not a journalist, sir. But that's all right, sir. I would like your views, sir, on the media and what it can do in nation building and what it can do towards this mission that we are all on for our country.
See, it's having been part of the media in the most challenging and in the most purposeful times in the Indian history, between 1975 and the emergency came until very actively till 1991. There was a purpose, there was a sense of idealism, there was a sense of commitment, there was a sense of sacrifice in being a journalist and in running a media. Once the journalists were paid like MBS, once they began acquiring properties, once they had the type of cars they were moving decided their status, that became the Lutyens' gang. I know Ramnath Goenka, with whom I have moved, is one of the most powerful persons who dismissed as many as a dozen chief ministers and 2 prime ministers. He will feel shy to get into a car larger than Maruti 800. He said, Guru, I feel shy. He ran the most powerful newspaper. Media is a mission. We have to bring back that spirit of mission in the media. A media cannot pay like Coca-Cola. It's very clear. Like IT companies. In fact, A.M. Nayak, a good friend of mine in L&T, used to say, the civil engineers whom I need for this nation building construction work, I can pay them only 25,000 rupees. But my IT company pays them 100,000 rupees. The civil engineers whom I need for this work are going there. You know, this misdirection in the economy is also one of the reasons why we are suffering in different fields. But about all this, there is no discussion. Specifically coming to the media, unless the missionary spirit is restored into the media. For example, what I feel proud about you is the days when we were fighting and having 2 hours and 3 hours of sleep and going to jail. And the entire system, a strike brought down the Indian Express. All kinds of 300 cases were filed against us. After that, I saw only one battle of the media against the government, and that is by you. So that is why I admired you. Unless a media is willing to fight, it is no media. We are lacking that media. We need examples. And I suppose many of these medias are just piffles. People are already losing faith in them. It is only the number of pages. It has more radi value than the content. I think all this will get settled because people will get bored with these things. I am sure some correction will take place. And there is already a civilizational moral movement in this country which will be the answer to this. Without a moral and civilizational movement which has been set off since 1980s in India, which has brought about all these changes, this movement has to be taken forward and deepened and intellectually supported. Then you will see the kind of results that we want to see. It cannot be merely by giving speeches or anything. It has to awaken the soul of India. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, and I hope I personally, and I hope all of us continue to receive your guidance and your blessings. I'm very proud to have had you, and I think I would like to stand up for a round of applause for you, sir. Thank you very much, sir. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Gurumurthy, and thank you, Arnab, for steering that so efficiently. Ladies and gentlemen, it's been a power-packed day of fabulous conversations and discussions that have helped us address and decode some of the economic puzzle that is India. Before we call curtains today, may I request you all to please be seated for just a few more minutes. It's obvious that India has the resources, the potential, and a determined and able government that will empower it in the race to